you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The whole environment itself works really well. I wrote about it in my paper. I talk about it in my other presentations. What I want to do from here, though, is I want to talk about how, if you establish that environment and you become used to teaching that environment and the students go, wow, this is really different. And they realize that there were certain things that they may have been taught before or in other classes. So for example, liaisons, okay, which, as I said before, is sometimes called linking. They may have been taught this in other textbooks, but it was probably limited to just a teacher explaining what a liaison is. And they would say something like, now listen to this. She is a good dog is actually said, she is a good dog. She is a good dog. So you give these examples, and that's just one. And the students go, okay, so I understand there's links between vowels and consonants. And you maybe get, Taro, and you maybe get Suzume to actually do that example for you, but not everyone. And sometimes even Suzume doesn't want to open her mouth, again, because it's a normal classroom environment. But if you're in a VC environment and it becomes a workspace for everyone to actually practice it, and liaisons too, it's very important to practice them when the students have achieved a level of fluency. If they are not yet fluent to the point where they're uttering at 80 or 90 words a minute, all they do is try to say different sounds, but it's still not linking because it's not going fast enough. It has to be done at a certain speed, a certain rate, and VC provides all of that. That's what I call the production environment. And the production environment is basically this idea that they're going to take turns and turns and turns, just like they were going, I am, are you are, is he. Half of that conversation is them. And they're going to be doing this practice. So if it was, I think she is a good dog. Do you think she's a good dog? They're going to get the next turn at that. And even within a 45-second turn, they're going to get 6 or 7 tries to say, she is a good dog. And to encourage students to vocalize is really hard for any of us to do. We all know that, like kids are very, very hesitant, but VC actually gives us the best of that. Now, just wondering, actually, let me pull up my participants list here so I can see people who may not have their cameras on. If you can just use your reactions button in your Zoom window and raise your hand, who among us have actually heard of the concept of linking or liaisons? Raise your hand in Zoom. Just one per, okay. And Nadia and Bobby, okay, they're good. So most of us have already heard about it. We know about it. Now, if you want to not just, do your own lesson and me actually take advantage of the fact that just about anything on YouTube that will explain just about any linguistics concept or just about anything actually, including like the other day, I had to figure out how to repair my bicycle derailleur. And I looked it up how to repair a bicycle derailleur, and there it was. And you look up linking, you look up connecting sounds. These are the best 2 that I've found. And so if you want to take a screen grab of those, they work really well in an LMS. Okay. But even before I found out about these guys, I had my own diagram to explain it. Now, I don't know if you can see that very well, but basically, the most basic rule is that if the sound of the preceding word ends in a consonant, not the sound, not the spelling, and then the vowel, the sound of the forthcoming word starts in a vowel, there is almost always, okay, with exceptions, a liaison. So is the Z sound. It begins with the I sound. So it's is it. It isn't is it, which is what our students say. Okay. Now, that's a basic rule, but I also went and thought about it, and there are 5 other situations, and you just got to make it clear. Now, if it's vowel to consonant, absolutely not. Never works. Okay. So you put that out there. This is when it doesn't happen. And it also doesn't happen even if it's a consonant and a vowel, if there's any punctuation in between, hyphens, commas, etc. Okay. And where it gets a little bit itchy is when you're dealing with vowel to vowel, which is what one of those YouTube videos was also talking about, the exceptions to that, and the positions when you actually insert a W sound or a Y sound. Okay. And this is probably the itchiest one. Sometimes, okay, a consonant-consonant sound creates a link. A good dog. So the first D drops off, becomes good dog. Okay. Or best time. I had the best time of my life. Okay. So the first T just drops off. But sometimes there are sounds that are similar, like a PH to an F or a T to a D. And you have to show that sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. Now, you could just put out a bunch of sample sentences and say, okay, let's try this, everyone. Okay, I do that. But one of the things that I do is, as Jason very graciously said, on my website, the website is designed around propagating authentic materials that I've created. And I'm going to just switch over there again, just really quickly. And I'll show you the main website itself. So from here, where are we here? Okay, this has got to go back. Okay, from the front page, okay, these are all individual articles that I've created by recording a conversation I had with a native or a near native speaker. So for example, if I click this one, this is with my friend Colleen, and we were just talking and talking and talking, and I found a little 3-minute or 4-minute segment that I thought started well, ended well, and had some interesting things I could talk about. I recorded it, turned it into an MP3. I transcribed it by ear. This is before the days of AI transcription. Okay. And put in all of the things like all of the discourse markers and all of the pause words. Where there they are. Yeah. And the repeats. You know, people say I in a normal conversation. So it's a truly authentic conversation with a truly authentic transcript, which is really important. Because if you want to point out to students that native speakers very often make grammatical mistakes in their native speech, you can show it here. Because there's all, and anywhere where I put in a bold area is where I thought, for example, this because, okay?
Because it was just
I wanted to show them that we don't really say because, we say cause, things like that. There's 130 articles here. There should be about 250, but I stopped working during the pandemic and haven't really gotten onto it since then. But one of them, okay, was with a friend of mine, me and my friend Chris O'Sullivan down here, okay, and he was explaining, you know, the sort of the funnier aspects of cricket, because as a Canadian, I don't know much about cricket, and he was explaining that it was really funny. Now, let's go back to my share over here. And so I make sure the students understand the basic rules as I want them to hear about. Oh, and by the way, I'll show you again later. These rules and the next set of materials I'm about to show you are also available for download from Goldfish 365. And I take one little, maybe about a 5-second chunk of that conversation from cricket, and I play it for the students.
In each day, how long does each of that test match? It's 5 days. So in one day, what is it?
And I asked them, where do you think the liaisons are in that 5 seconds? Okay. And when they go by the rules, for example, they'll look at something like here, they look at in each. They go, oh, that's a consonant to a vowel. That's got to be one there. How about this one here? Oh, the does each. Okay, that's got to be a consonant to a vowel. And they'll look at other ones like so win, and they think, okay, well, there's one there. There are other places, but I tell them, no, not really. Sometimes when I really want to emphasize something, I don't make the liaison. These liaisons are not absolutely automatic. What I said was in each day, because I wanted to emphasize that. So I didn't liaise. How long does each? Okay. So I said, you can barely, you think you can, but I wasn't really actually trying to do it. So you should be aware of it, because we do it a lot, but we don't do it all the time. But if you can learn how to do it, it'll really help your fluency and your listening strategies. And then they start hearing things like, what is it? Okay. Or so in. They also see this. So in one. Oh, so that's an N to an O. And I go, no. One, the sound, the initial sound of one is actually a consonant sound. It's a W. So even though you look at it by spelling, no, that's not how it works. That test match. Oh, those are things that they do. Oh yeah, let me show you. That was another share I wanted to do here. Where is it? Yeah. Here is me teaching this to my students, and I give them a handout. I give them the actual materials on the projector, and by each liaison, one at a time, I ask them to guess. They discuss with each other, they practice it out, and then we all work to become familiar with all of these positions. So it's because verbal classrooms gives me the opportunity to practice using high fluency practices. They actually can practice, and they get numerous turns at actually doing it. It's not just the one turn where they're feeling the pressure of getting it right in front of everyone. They're not in front of everyone. They're only with their partner. And then if they don't get it right with this partner, they get the next partner to try it with. Okay, let's go back. So to me, the real advantage here is that this is something that you can't really practice well in just about any other kind of classroom environment. This has to be a verbal classrooms environment. You get numerous turns, you get numerous tries. You encourage your students in the first 4 or 5 weeks to become more and more fluent. You teach them how to do that by teaching them how to control their speaking, their pace, and at the same time try to improve their speed. By the way, if you want to download that, or you want to go to Verbal Classrooms, that's a QR code that goes straight to it. That is the QR code to it. And as I was just saying before, and I kind of jumped the gun, it was actually in this particular slide. VC is where it really shines, not just with liaisons, but the idea that you're now in a completely different classroom environment where you can start teaching not just liaisons, but a whole bunch of other things, but particularly with liaisons, okay? They can be practiced more effectively because these kids have already become used to uttering at 85 to 100 words per minute and uttering really, really quickly. I wanted to show you one more thing too, which is this is how I use my iPad in the classroom hooked up to the projector, or in my case, because I find it very flexible, my iPad is hooked up to my computer, which is hooked up to the projector. And that allows me to use the projector, that large screen, to really, really enlarge what I would write on a blackboard. And even if I try to write really large, it can be quite illegible. And it's really important that they see what's happening. So I'm actually going to switch my share to my iPad and show you. Oh, come here. Yeah, there you go. And show you what I normally do with my students. So excuse me just a minute. It's got to connect to my computer. So this is actually the image of my iPad. And you can see that that's my iPad. That's me writing down there with my Apple Pencil. So this is what they see on the projector. And they've been practicing, okay, these sentences. Okay, maybe I should study now. Shouldn't you study now? And then I go, okay, now let's take a look at liaisons. Okay, now let's start with just, shouldn't I, shouldn't you, shouldn't he, shouldn't it? And they go, oh yeah, that's right. I am making that. Some of them are actually inadvertently doing it already. It's a natural tendency to liaise those sounds because it's easier to say. But now we're going to actually put this up as a target, kids. Now let's look at this. I have to wake up at 7. Did you notice that you don't actually say, I have to wake up at? You say, wake up at. And using my my Apple Pencil and using a different color and making sure that they understand that this is a sound, so that's why I write it in all caps. I can do this with a number of sentences that I provide for them, and it works out really, really well. And if you haven't yet, or if you don't have an iPad, I completely understand. But my good friend Alex Burke, if you haven't had her come present at Akita, Jason, I really recommend Alex Burke come and talk to you about accessibility and equity, because as a person suffering from, I shouldn't say suffer, but who has autism, she has not autism, ADHD, or and she's like a couple of things. She really empathizes with her students who have a hard time seeing normal classroom materials. And this makes it much, much easier to actually see what the teacher is actually writing. And I'll show you, I'm going to go back to here. That's the projector in one of my classrooms. But when I put the projector up there, it's so much easier to see all the way to the back of the room. And I think I have another image. Yeah. And if you're lucky to have multiple rooms, those letters and words become so much bigger and so much easier to write, because then you don't have to, make your arm tired writing really, really big on a blackboard. You're writing literally on your iPad, and then it goes all over the room, especially the ones with the multiple screen rooms. Okay, let's go back to the slideshow. That's something that I really, really recommend. Liaisons is just one thing that you can use to target. When you're talking about fluency, you start to recognize the other aspects of fluency that these kids aren't doing. But if they could understand it, they would actually start to become even more fluent. But you don't become in tune with that until you become a fluency teacher yourself. And if you stair step, and I talk about stair stepping in my other presentations, basically the idea that you take, for example, a sentence like, I think it will rain tomorrow. Okay, so you first do the I do you do, does he, I think, do you think? So that's the first, step on the stair step. You go from the basic I do you to I think, do you think? Then I think to something like, you could practice, I am good. Are you good? Right? You are good. Is he good? He is good. It is good. Is it good? Then you put that it is good as the independent clause for I think. I think it is good. Do you think it is good? Do you think it is good? Does he think it is good? Then you stretch that out. Or maybe you can also, before you take that, you take another step and you practice the future form. It will, right? I will go. You will go. I will go. Will you go? Then you get to the master sentence, which is, I think it will rain tomorrow. Do you think it will rain tomorrow? That's what stair stepping is. For example, so if you get all that done, okay, and you've got a particular sentence that you want them to learn. So for example, if it's, I think it will rain tomorrow. A lot of these kids try, that's not so hard. I think it will rain tomorrow. That's only 6 words. And most kids will be able to say that fairly fluently. But for some that don't, you point out to them this sentence, maybe less than others, but almost everything in English has a melody. And trying to get them to speak smoothly, sometimes, especially for the musically inclined, you hum out the melody of the sentence as you're saying it. So you say it. Everybody listen to me say it, okay? I think it will rain tomorrow. I think it will rain tomorrow. And then you tell them, okay, you hum out my melody with me. Now say it. I think it will rain tomorrow. I think it will rain tomorrow. And they'll remember the melody better than they will other things like stresses and the pronunciation chart or anything like that, because as human beings, we innately understand the melody of music more than we understand artificial pronunciation charts. So teaching them to speak with melody, teaching them to be in tune with the melody of the sentence that they're trying to mimic, and then using that as the skeleton for how the pronunciation of this should go. How the pronunciation of this should go. And you teach them that, and then they try to mimic that, and they're not going to all get it, but it's a new avenue of attack for them that maybe will help. Teaching discourse markers. You can't really teach discourse markers until they have a lot of ideas that they want to say. You can teach them discourse markers in this prepared text, and you can analyze that all to hell and say, this is why he said actually, and this is why these days, modern English says I mean a lot. But until they actually have a lot of ideas, they're able to create that from independent conversation. Trying to teach them discourse markers is just another thing that they're going to stuff into their heads and we're going to forget 2 weeks later. However, if you start putting that into the conversation and you make that part of the VC sentence that they're targeting, it becomes really, really natural. Related to discourse markers is fillers, which is a type of discourse marker, but it's everybody knows what the difference is. But learning to say and I try to tell them, and this is a very sincere thing. It was one of the most important things I learned to become fluent in Japanese was knowing the timing for saying things like and if you cannot use those skillfully in your second language, you just sound weird. Nobody who's fluent in any language can speak without fillers. And of course, discourse markers, but fillers are actually more important. And learning to do that, you can use VC to do it because they get numerous turns at it. The authentic materials, I show them that yes, we all do. I do. All of my English friends, my Australian friends do. And I'm going to be signing off from the main presentation in a couple of minutes, and that's good because I was kind of hoping that I would be able to finish with a few minutes left for people to ask questions. So if you have any questions you want to ask, start thinking about them. But I wanted to end by showing that for all of the people that have ever taken VC to heart, they found it really, really useful. And at all levels of education. Mary Virgil Uchida, she's pretty big in JALT, and some of you might know her from Young Learners, SIG, et cetera, et cetera. And she says it's a game changer, not just for her work at universities, but for her own English school with little children. They really enjoy the whole turn taking thing and the idea of learning a pattern and stuff. And the kids take it home with them. The class is over, and like some of my university students, they start actually murmuring the pattern to themselves. Jenny Crittenden, she's actually living in France now, and she probably will teach English eventually at some point. But when she was working in Fukuoka as a high school teacher, had great success with it. My friend Catherine Akasaka and my good buddy Adam Jenkins, they both find great success with verbal classrooms. So if you want to contact me, okay, there's my email. There's the actual text URL for verbal classrooms, the VC documents themselves, not just Goldfish. Goldfish365.com is the main website. But if you want to join my Facebook group where I talk about verbal classrooms, I show little video hints and little lessons that I do. The main website QR is above. The Facebook group QR is below. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sorry I flubbed up a little bit by forgetting to change the screen at the beginning of the presentation, but I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks very much, Jason, everybody.